Female CEO loses a bet, ends up living with a single black dad. Then, everything changes. Ainsley Beckford was not accustomed to losing. As the 34-year-old CEO of Beckford Media Group, she'd built her reputation on being smarter, faster, and more ruthless than anyone else in the room. So when her rival and occasional friend, Tegan Rhodes, suggested a friendly wager during their weekly racquetball game, Ainsley couldn't resist. "You're getting predictable," Tegan said, wiping sweat from her brow. "Same moves, same strategies. You need to shake things up." "My strategies work. I don't need to shake anything up." Ainsley's blonde ponytail swished as she prepared for the next serve. "That's exactly your problem. You're so comfortable in your bubble. Your penthouse, your boardroom, your country club. You have no idea how regular people live." "I know how people live. I employ over 2,000 people. Employing them isn't the same as understanding them. I bet you couldn't last 2 weeks living like an average person. No penthouse, no personal assistant, no executive privileges." Ainsley's competitive nature flared. "That's ridiculous. Of course I could." "Prove it." 2 weeks living in a normal apartment in a working-class neighborhood, living on an average salary budget. If you can do it without complaining or quitting, I'll donate $100,000 to your favorite charity. And if I can't, you donate the $100,000 to mine. And you have to implement 3 employee welfare programs I've been suggesting for years. Ainsley considered the bet. She was confident she could handle anything for 2 weeks. How hard could it be? "Fine, but I get to choose when. Next month, and Ainsley? I get to choose where you stay. Can't have you renting some luxury loft and calling it average." They shook on it, and Ainsley immediately dismissed the bet from her mind. She had a company to run, deals to close, and competitors to crush. Living like a regular person for 2 weeks would be annoying, but manageable. She had no idea how wrong she was. 1 month later, Ainsley stood outside a modest 2-story house in a working-class neighborhood of Portland, Oregon, staring at the address Tegan had texted her. This was where she'd be staying for the next 2 weeks? "You've got to be kidding me," Ainsley muttered, pulling her designer luggage from her BMW's trunk, the last luxury she was allowed before parking the car in storage for the duration of the bet. The front door opened, and a man stepped onto the porch. He was tall, probably 6'2", with dark skin and a guarded expression. He wore jeans and a t-shirt that showed off an athletic build, and his close-cropped hair and neat beard gave him a put-together appearance despite his casual clothes. "You must be Ainsley. I'm Jericho Mills. Tegan's my cousin, and she's paying me to rent you my spare room for 2 weeks. Come on in." Ainsley blinked. "Wait, Tegan's making me stay with her cousin? She said I'd have an apartment." "This is an apartment. The upstairs is a separate unit. My daughter Zadie and I live down here. You'll have the upstairs, separate entrance around back, but you'll share the kitchen and laundry. House rules are on the fridge. I don't do roommates," Ainsley said flatly. "Then you forfeit the bet." Tegan was very clear. "You live like an average person, which means you don't get your own place in this neighborhood on the budget she allotted. This is what's affordable. Take it or leave it." Ainsley gritted her teeth. She could already see Tegan smirk if she backed out now. "Fine, show me the room." The house was well-maintained, but definitely not luxury. The furniture looked second-hand, the carpet was worn, and the kitchen appliances were at least a decade old. But it was clean, and there were touches of warmth. Children's artwork on the fridge, family photos on the walls, a cozy living room with a well-loved couch. "Upstairs," Jericho said, leading her up a narrow staircase. "Bedroom, bathroom, small sitting area. No TV up here, but you can join us downstairs if you want to watch something. Wi-Fi password is on the router." The upstairs apartment was basic but functional. A full-size bed with simple linens, a dresser, a small bathroom with a shower tub combo, and a sitting area with a reading chair and lamp. It was the kind of space Ainsley would have considered unacceptable for a vacation rental, let alone 2 weeks of her life. "This is cozy," she managed. "It's what you're paying for. Tegan gave me your budget, $750 for 2 weeks, including utilities and shared kitchen access. This is what that gets you. $750. Ainsley spent more than that on her monthly gym membership. "Right. And the house rules you mentioned? On the fridge. Basically, clean up after yourself. Respect quiet hours after 9 p.m. because my daughter has school. Don't monopolize the bathroom in the morning. We share cooking times. You can check the schedule. Any questions? When do I meet your daughter?" "Zadie gets home from school around 4. She's 10, and she's shy around strangers. So don't take it personally if she doesn't warm up to you right away. Anything else? No, I'll be fine. After Jericho left, Ainsley sat on the bed and looked around the small room. 2 weeks. She could survive 2 weeks anywhere. How hard could it possibly be? The first morning, Ainsley woke to the sound of a child's laughter and the smell of something burning. She checked her phone. 6:15 a.m. Who was up this early? She padded downstairs in her silk pajamas and robe, only to find the kitchen in organized chaos. Jericho was at the stove, attempting to salvage what looked like scrambled eggs, while a young black girl with braided hair sat at the table working on homework. "Daddy, the eggs are smoking again," the girl, Zadie, observed. "I know, sweetheart. I'm working on it." Ainsley cleared her throat, and both turned to look at her. Jericho's eyes swept over her expensive sleepwear, and she saw his expression tighten with something like judgment. "Morning. Coffee's there if you want some. Mugs in the cabinet above." "Thank you." Ainsley poured herself coffee, hyper-aware of how out of place she looked in designer silk among their functional morning routine. "You must be the lady staying upstairs," Zadie said, her voice curious but cautious. "Dad said you're doing an experiment." "Something like that. And you must be Zadie. Your dad told me about you." "I'm 10 3/4. I'm in 5th grade and I'm really good at math." Zadie spoke with the earnest confidence of a child who hadn't yet learned to doubt herself. "Math is important. I use it every day at work." "What kind of work do you do?" Ainsley hesitated. The bet required her to live like an average person, but she hadn't been told she couldn't talk about her job. "I run a media company." "Like TV?" "Sort of. More like digital content. Websites, streaming platforms, that kind of thing." Jericho interrupted, sliding a plate of slightly burned eggs in front of Zadie. "Eat up, kiddo. Bus comes in 20 minutes. "Daddy, these are crunchy." "I know. I'm still perfecting my technique." After Zadie left for school, Ainsley found herself alone in the kitchen with Jericho. The silence was awkward. "So," Jericho said, washing dishes, "Tegan says you're some high-powered CEO who doesn't know how regular people live. That true?" "That's reductive. I know how people live, but you've never lived like them. There's a difference." He dried his hands and turned to face her. "Look, I don't know what kind of agreement you and Tegan have, but I'm doing this for the money she's paying me. I'm a single dad working 2 jobs to keep this house and give my daughter a stable life. I don't have time for rich people's games. So while you're here, just stay out of our way, okay?" The dismissal stung more than Ainsley expected. "I'm not trying to interfere with your life." "Good. Because we have a routine and we don't need someone disrupting it. The house rules are on the fridge. Follow them and we'll be fine." After he left for work, Ainsley examined the rules. 1. Shared kitchen times, 6 to 7 a.m., Jericho. 7 to 8 a.m., Ainsley. 5 to 6 p.m., Jericho. 6 to 7 p.m., Ainsley. 2. Laundry. Ainsley gets Wednesdays and Saturdays at 3. Quiet hours, 9 p.m., 6 a.m., Zadie's bedtime wake time. 4. Clean up immediately after yourself. 5. No guests without prior approval. 6. Respect each other's space and privacy. It was like living in a college dorm, complete with a resident advisor who clearly didn't want her there. Ainsley had never felt more out of place in her life. Hello, my Stop Racism family. Thank you for tuning in today. Before we dive deeper into this beautiful love story, I want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your country and state in the comments below. Also, I'd love to know your thoughts. What did you think of the story so far? Do you believe love can truly conquer prejudice? Let us know in the comments. We love reading them. And trust me, your words motivate us to keep making these videos. Let's make this video reach at least 50 comments. Your support means the world to us, and it drives us to create even more meaningful content for you. So don't forget to comment, share, and keep spreading love. The first week was brutal. Ainsley had to cook her own meals, something she hadn't done regularly since college. The grocery store was overwhelming with its endless choices and budget constraints. She found herself calculating costs in ways she never had, trying to stretch $75 for a week's worth of food. That's not going to work, Jericho said one evening when he saw her cart full of prepackaged meals and organic produce. They'd run into each other at the store, apparently the only one in the neighborhood that fit their respective budgets. "Excuse me? You've got about $120 worth of groceries there. Your budget is $75 for the week, right?" "That's what Tegan said." "I know my budget," Ainsley said defensively. "Then you need to rethink your strategy. Bulk rice, dried beans, frozen vegetables, chicken thighs instead of breasts. Meal prep on Sundays so you're not buying convenience food all week. I don't need shopping advice. Clearly you do. But hey, it's your money and your bet. Jericho pushed his cart away, leaving Ainsley staring at her overflowing basket. She ended up putting half of it back, settling for basics and cheaper alternatives. The food she cooked that week was mediocre at best, and she missed her meal delivery service desperately. But the real eye-opener was watching Jericho's routine. He left at 6:30 a.m. for his first job as a maintenance supervisor at an office complex. He'd return around 3 p.m., pick up Zadie from the after-school program run by his neighbor Portia, help with homework, make dinner, and then leave again at 7 p.m. for his second job as a security guard at a warehouse. He wouldn't return until midnight, often looking exhausted. How do you do this? Ainsley asked one evening when they crossed paths in the kitchen. She was making her sad attempt at pasta while he prepped lunch for Zadie the next day. Do what? 2 jobs, single parenting, this house. It's a lot. It's life. Zadie's mom, my ex-wife Simone, she left when Zadie was 2. Decided motherhood wasn't for her, so I figured it out. You do what you have to for your kid. Still, it can't be easy. Easy? Jericho laughed without humor. No, it's not easy, but Ainsley, this is what regular people do. We work multiple jobs to pay rent. We stretch food budgets. We get creative with childcare. We don't have personal assistance or trust funds or safety nets. We just have ourselves and our determination. The words felt like a judgment, and Ainsley found herself getting defensive. I worked for what I have. I built my company from nothing. I'm not saying you didn't, but there's a difference between building a company and building a life when you don't have resources, connections, or privilege to fall back on. You had advantages I didn't. What advantages? You're white. That's advantage number 1 in America. You had family money. Tegan mentioned your father owned a business. You went to private schools, got into an Ivy League college. Yeah, you worked hard, but you started 20 steps ahead of where I started. Ainsley wanted to argue, but something in his tired eyes made her pause. I never thought about it that way. Most people don't. That's the problem. By the second week, Ainsley had started to find her rhythm. She'd learned to meal prep, to budget effectively, to navigate the public transportation system when she couldn't use her car. She'd even started helping Zadie with homework in the evenings, discovering the girl was indeed brilliant at math, but struggled with reading comprehension. I don't get why the character does that, Zadie complained one evening, staring at her English assignment. It doesn't make sense. Sometimes people don't make sense, Ainsley said gently. Sometimes they make choices based on emotions instead of logic. But that's stupid. Maybe. But it's human. We're not always logical creatures. Jericho watched this interaction from the kitchen doorway, something softening in his expression. Later, after Zadie went to bed, he approached Ainsley. Thank you for helping her. Reading isn't her strong suit, and I'm not great at teaching it. She's a smart kid. She just processes things differently. I know. I've been trying to get her into a tutoring program, but they all cost money I don't have. The school has free programs, but they're full with waiting lists. An idea sparked in Ainsley's mind. What if I tutored her? While I'm here, at least. I was an English major before I switched to business. Jericho looked skeptical. Why would you do that? Because she needs help, and I can provide it. Not everything has to be complicated, Jericho. With you, I think everything is complicated. But, if you're serious, Zadie would appreciate it. Thank you. It was the first genuinely warm thing he'd said to her, and Ainsley felt an unexpected flush of pleasure at his approval. Over the next few days, their interactions shifted. Jericho started staying up to talk when he came home from his night job, both of them sitting in the kitchen over tea or decaf coffee. Ainsley learned about his background, how he'd grown up in foster care, bounced between homes, aged out of the system at 18 with nothing but his determination and a high school diploma. I worked construction, saved every penny, put myself through trade school, met Simone, thought I'd found my happily ever after. Then Zadie was born, and Simone realized motherhood was limiting her potential. She left, and I haven't heard from her in 8 years. That's terrible. I'm sorry. Don't be. Zadie's better off without someone who didn't want her, and I got to be her dad. That's a gift, even when it's hard. You're a good father. Zadie's lucky to have you. I don't know about good. I'm doing my best. But Ainsley, there are nights I lie awake wondering if my best is enough. If Zadie deserves more than scrambled eggs for breakfast and a dad who works 2 jobs and still can't afford to send her to the summer camp she wants. The vulnerability in his voice cracked something open in Ainsley's chest. She doesn't need summer camp or perfect breakfasts. She needs exactly what you're giving her. Love, stability, presence. That's worth more than money. Says the woman who has plenty of money. I do. But I was raised by parents who had money but no time. My dad built his business empire, and my mom was too busy being a socialite to actually parent. I grew up in a mansion, but I grew up alone. Zadie has you. That matters more than you realize. They sat in comfortable silence, and Ainsley realized she was seeing Jericho, really seeing him for the first time. Not as Tegan's cousin or the inconvenient roommate, but as a person. A good person who was doing his best against difficult odds. And he was seeing her differently too. She could tell by the way his expression had softened, the way he actually smiled at her jokes, the way he'd started leaving the kitchen light on for her when he knew she'd be up late working on her laptop. Something was shifting between them, and Ainsley wasn't sure if she should be excited or terrified. Midway through the second week, Zadie's teacher called to say she was sick and needed to be picked up from school. Jericho was at work and couldn't leave, and Portia, the usual backup, was dealing with her own family emergency. I can get her, Ainsley offered when Jericho called, panic evident in his voice. You don't have a car seat? Or a car, since yours is in storage. I'll take an Uber with a car seat option. Jericho, it's fine. I can handle picking up a sick 10-year-old. 20 minutes later, Ainsley was at the school feeling completely out of her depth. Zadie was in the nurse's office, looking miserable with a fever and stomachache. Miss Beckford? The nurse looked skeptical. You're not on Zadie's approved pickup list. Her father called the school. Check with the office. Jericho Mills should have called to add me temporarily. After verification, Ainsley was allowed to take Zadie home. The girl was quiet in the car, clearly not feeling well. And when they got to the house, she immediately curled up on the couch. Do you need anything? Water? Crackers? Medicine? Ainsley felt helpless, completely unprepared for a sick child. Can you just stay? Zadie's voice was small. I don't like being alone when I'm sick. Of course. Ainsley sat on the opposite end of the couch, and Zadie immediately scooted closer, eventually falling asleep with her head on Ainsley's lap. That's how Jericho found them 2 hours later when he rushed home from work. Zadie asleep across Ainsley's lap, Ainsley gently stroking the girl's braided hair, both of them looking peaceful. How is she? Jericho whispered. Fever of 101. I gave her children's Tylenol at 2:30. She threw up once but has kept down water and crackers. I think it's just a stomach bug. Thank you. For getting her. For staying with her. Thank you. It's okay. She's a sweet kid. Ainsley looked down at Zadie's sleeping face. She said she doesn't like being alone when she's sick. Does that happen a lot? Her being alone? Jericho's expression tightened with guilt. Sometimes I can't get home when she's sick. Portia usually helps, but yeah. Sometimes she has to tough it out alone until I can leave work. Single parent problem. That shouldn't have to be a problem. There should be better support systems, better childcare options for working parents. Should be a lot of things. But this is reality. As Jericho carefully moved Zadie to her bedroom, Ainsley found herself thinking about the dozens of employees at her company who were probably facing similar struggles. How many of them couldn't afford childcare? How many worked while sick because they couldn't afford to take time off? How many chose between feeding their kids and paying rent? She'd never considered these questions before. But living here, seeing Jericho's daily struggles, watching Zadie try to be brave about her dad's long hours, it was changing something fundamental in how Ainsley understood the world. That evening, after Zadie was settled, Jericho and Ainsley sat on the back porch drinking tea. Can I ask you something personal? Ainsley said. Depends on the question. Do you resent me? For having money? For having privilege? For being here? Jericho was quiet for a long moment. Initially, yeah, you represent everything I've never had. Financial security, opportunities, choices. But Ainsley, watching you these past 2 weeks, you're trying. You're learning. You helped my daughter without being asked. You've adapted to living on a budget. And you haven't complained once about the accommodations, even though I know they're way below your standards. That's because Tegan's watching. If I complain, I lose the bet. I don't think that's the only reason anymore. I think you're actually starting to get it. What life is like for people who don't have your advantages, and that matters. I still have so much to learn. Before I came here, I thought I understood struggle because I worked hard to build my company. But that's not the same as the kind of struggle you face every day. I'm beginning to realize how much I've taken for granted. That's growth. Most wealthy people never get there. They sat in companionable silence, and Ainsley found herself hyper-aware of Jericho beside her. The way the porch light caught his profile, the quiet strength in how he held himself despite obvious exhaustion, the gentleness in his voice when he talked about Zadie. She was attracted to him. The realization hit her like a physical force, not just physically attracted, though he was undeniably handsome, but drawn to his character, his integrity, his determination to give his daughter a good life despite impossible odds. And that attraction was complicated by 1,000 factors she hadn't considered. The bet, the temporary nature of her stay, the fact that they came from completely different worlds. And yes, the race difference that society would definitely have opinions about. Ainsley? Jericho's voice pulled her from her thoughts. Where'd you go? Just thinking. This experience has been more impactful than I expected. Good impactful or bad impactful? Both. Uncomfortable but necessary. I needed this reality check. And after these 2 weeks, you go back to your penthouse and your CEO life. What changes? I don't know yet, but something will. Something has to. The final days of the bet brought unexpected complications. Ainsley's assistant Kimber called with a crisis at work. A major deal was falling apart and needed the CEO's immediate attention. I can't. I'm in the middle of something. Ainsley, this is a $40 million deal. What could possibly be more important? She looked around the small kitchen where she was helping Zadie with her reading homework. I made a commitment. Handle it, Kimber. That's why I pay you. After hanging up, Ainsley felt Jericho's eyes on her. You could have gone. I would have understood. I made a promise to Zadie that we'd finish this book together. Work can wait. Can it? You're a CEO. Don't you have responsibilities? I do. But I'm learning that not everything is an emergency, and delegating doesn't mean failing. I've been micromanaging my company for years because I thought I was the only one who could do things right. Maybe that's not true. Jericho smiled. Definitely growth. But the complications weren't just professional. Ainsley's friend Winona stopped by unannounced, having gotten the address from Tegan. Oh my God, Ainsley, what are you doing in this neighborhood? Winona's perfectly made-up face showed genuine horror as she surveyed the house from her BMW. Tegan said you'd lost a bet, but I didn't realize it was this bad. It's not bad. It's just different. It's a dump. And you're living with... Winona lowered her voice when she saw Jericho in the yard. With them? Ainsley, what are you thinking? I'm thinking you need to leave. Ainsley's voice was ice. Now, I'm trying to help. This isn't safe. This isn't appropriate. Winona, leave and don't come back. After her friend drove away, Ainsley found Jericho standing rigid in the kitchen. I heard that. What she said about them. She meant me and Zadie, right? The black people you're living with. She's ignorant. I'm sorry. Don't apologize for her. But Ainsley, that's your world. Those are the people you associate with, the friends you've chosen. What do you think happens when you go back? When this bet ends and you return to your real life? You think you can maintain whatever... He gestured between them. Whatever this is when your friends are racist and your social circle has opinions about you slumming it with a black single dad? I don't care what they think. You should, because their opinions affect you professionally, socially, in ways you probably haven't considered. And Ainsley, I won't put myself or Zadie in a position where we're someone's rebellious phase or social experiment. We've been through too much to be collateral damage in your journey of self-discovery. The words hurt because they touched on Ainsley's own fears. What would happen when the bet ended? Could she maintain friendships with people like Winona? Could she return to her previous life, knowing what she knew now about how the other half lived? And what about Jericho? What about these feelings she developed for a man who represented everything different from her usual type? Different class, different race, different values? You're not a phase or an experiment, Ainsley said quietly. You and Zadie, you've changed how I see the world. That's not something I can just forget when I go back to my regular life. But you will go back. In 2 days, this bet ends, and you return to being a CEO. I return to being a single dad working 2 jobs. Our paths don't actually cross in real life. Maybe they should. Ainsley, I mean it. Maybe I need to rethink my life, my priorities, my choices. Maybe you and Zadie showing me a different way to live is exactly what I needed. Or maybe you're caught up in the novelty of it. Poor people cosplay is fun for 2 weeks, but it's not sustainable long term. You're not built for this life. How do you know? You've never given me a chance to prove otherwise. Because I'm protecting myself and my daughter. We can't afford to get attached to someone who's just passing through. But the way he looked at her, the longing mixed with resistance, suggested they might already be attached, whether they wanted to be or not. The last day of the bet arrived with bittersweet awareness. Ainsley had completed the 2 weeks, proving she could live on a budget, adapt to different circumstances, and survive outside her usual privilege bubble. But the victory felt hollow because it meant leaving. Leaving the small room that had become cozy, leaving the rhythm of shared kitchen schedules and quiet evening conversations, leaving Zadie's bright smile and improving reading skills, leaving Jericho's presence that had become the best part of her day. You did it, Tegan said when she stopped by for the official bet conclusion. 2 weeks, no complaints, living like a regular person. I'm impressed. I learned a lot. I can tell. You look different. Less polished, more grounded, good different. After Tegan left to arrange the charity donation, Ainsley found Jericho in the kitchen making dinner. I'm leaving tomorrow morning, back to my real life. I know. Zadie's going to miss you. She got attached. Just Zadie? Jericho set down his knife, turning to face her fully. Ainsley, don't make this harder than it has to be. Why not? Why can't we be honest about what's happened these past 2 weeks? Because honesty doesn't change reality. You're a billionaire's CEO. I'm a single dad barely making ends meet. You're white, I'm black. And yes, that matters because society has opinions. You live in a penthouse downtown. I live in a working-class neighborhood. Our lives don't overlap outside this artificial situation Tegan created. They could overlap, if we wanted them to. Want isn't enough. Ainsley, I've been down this road before. I dated a white woman in my 20s, Camille. She said she didn't care about the differences, that love conquered all. But when her parents threatened to cut her off, when her friends made comments, when strangers stared at us everywhere we went, she cared. She broke up with me because the social pressure was too much. I won't do that again. I'm not Camille. Maybe not. But you're still from a world that doesn't easily accept relationships like ours. And I have Zadie to think about. I can't bring someone into her life who might not stay. What if I promise to stay? Don't make promises you can't keep. Jericho's voice was gentle but firm. Go back to your life, Ainsley. Implement whatever changes you learned here. Be a better boss. Treat your employees better. Donate to causes that help people like me. But don't try to force a relationship that doesn't make sense. Ainsley felt tears threatening. And if I think it makes perfect sense, if being here has made me realize that my previous life was empty and meaningless, and that you and Zadie represent everything I actually want, then you're confusing gratitude and attraction with love. Give it time. When you're back in your world, surrounded by your real life, you'll see this was just a moment, a learning experience, but not a life. You don't believe that any more than I do. I have to believe it, because the alternative, believing we could actually work, is too dangerous for my heart and Zadie's. Ainsley returned to her penthouse, her company, her previous life, but nothing felt the same. The luxury apartment felt cold and impersonal. Her executive office felt isolating. Her designer clothes felt like costumes. And her friends, people like Winona, who made casual racist comments and viewed her working-class experience as amusing anecdote, suddenly felt intolerable. You've been different since that bet, Kimber observed, during their first meeting back. More thoughtful, less reactive. I learned things about how our employees live, about the struggles people face. Kimber, did you know 3 of our staff are working second jobs just to afford rent? I didn't, but... And 12 employees have had to bring their kids to work because they can't afford childcare. And we have people skipping lunch because food prices have gone up, but we haven't adjusted wages in 3 years. How did I not know this? Because you were focused on growth and profits? Right. And that needs to change. Over the next week, Ainsley implemented sweeping changes at Beckford Media Group. She increased the minimum wage for all employees by 30%. She established an on-site childcare program with subsidized rates. She created a hardship fund to help employees facing financial emergencies. She changed PTO policies to be more generous and flexible. The board was horrified. Her CFO Calvin predicted financial disaster, but Ainsley held firm. These employees are the backbone of our company. They deserve to be paid living wages, to have support systems, To not have to choose between feeding their kids and paying rent. If we can't afford to treat our people well, we don't deserve to be in business. This is about that single dad, isn't it? Calvin said. The one you stayed with during the bet. Tegan told me about him. This is about doing what's right. But yes, Jericho and Zadie opened my eyes to realities I'd been ignoring. They showed me what struggle actually looks like, and I'm ashamed it took living with them for 2 weeks to understand what my own employees face every day. And the personal aspect? Are you involved with him? That's none of your business. But the question haunted Ainsley. Was she involved with Jericho? She wanted to be. God, she wanted to be. She thought about him constantly. His quiet strength, his dedication to Zadie, the way he'd challenged her assumptions and made her grow. She thought about Zadie's laughter, her improving reading skills, the way she'd fallen asleep in Ainsley's lap that day she was sick. She missed them, desperately. 2 weeks after leaving Jericho's house, Ainsley called Tegan. I need to see him. Jericho, can you give me his number? I could. But Ainsley, are you sure? My cousin has been through a lot. He doesn't need someone playing with his emotions. I'm not playing. I'm serious about him. Serious enough to date a working-class black man? Serious enough to deal with the stares, the comments, the social consequences? Because that's what you're signing up for. I know. And yes, I'm serious enough. Tegan, I've spent the past 2 weeks trying to forget him, trying to convince myself it was just proximity and novelty. But it wasn't. He changed me, made me better. And I hope, I changed him too. He hasn't been the same since you left. Quieter, more withdrawn. Zadie asked me where you went. Why? You don't visit anymore. I want to visit. I want to be part of their lives. If Jericho will let me. Tegan gave her the number with a warning. Don't hurt him. If you're not absolutely sure, walk away now. He deserves someone who's all in. I'm all in. I just need him to believe it. Ainsley showed up at Jericho's house on a Saturday afternoon, her heart pounding. She'd rehearsed what she wanted to say 100 times, but when Zadie opened the door, all her prepared speeches fled. Ainsley! Zadie threw herself into Ainsley's arms. You came back. I missed you. I missed you too, sweetheart. Is your dad home? He's fixing the sink. Dad, Ainsley's here. Jericho emerged from the kitchen, wrench in hand, surprise and wariness on his face. Ainsley, what are you doing here? I need to talk to you. Can we go somewhere private? After asking Portia to watch Zadie for an hour, Jericho drove them to a nearby park. They sat on a bench overlooking a small pond, the silence heavy between them. You look good, Jericho said finally. Back in your element. I hate my element. I hate my penthouse. I hate my superficial friends. I hate going to bed alone in that big, empty apartment. Jericho, these past 3 weeks without you have been miserable. Ainsley, let me finish. You said I was confusing gratitude and attraction with love. You said I'd go back to my world and realize this was just a moment. You were wrong. Every day away from you has made me more certain, not less. I love you. I love Zadie. I want to be part of your lives, if you'll have me. It's not that simple. Why not? Because I'm rich and you're not? Because I'm white and you're black? Because society will have opinions? Jericho, I don't care about any of that. I care about you, about building a life together, about waking up to your terrible scrambled eggs and helping Zadie with her homework and falling asleep next to you every night. And when your friends make racist comments, when my neighbors judge me for dating someone so far above my social class, when Zadie's classmates make fun of her for having a white stepmom, have you thought about those things? Yes, and I'm prepared to face all of them, because you're worth it. Jericho, you told me that first week that I had privilege and advantages you didn't. You were right. But one advantage I have that I haven't used yet is choice. I get to choose who I love, who I build my life with, and I choose you. Why? Why me? You could have anyone, because you see me, not my money or my company or my image. You see me, the person who burns dinner and doesn't know how to meal prep and needed to learn what struggle actually meant. You challenged me to be better, and I am better because of you. You make me want to be the person Zadie thinks I am when she looks at me with those bright eyes. Jericho's resistance was crumbling. Ainsley could see it in how his shoulders relaxed, how his expression softened. I'm scared, he admitted. Scared of getting hurt again. Scared of Zadie getting hurt if this doesn't work. Scared that I'm not enough for someone like you. You're more than enough. You're everything. And I'm scared too. Scared I'll mess this up. Scared I don't know how to be part of a family. Scared my lack of experience with normal life will be a problem. But Jericho, I'd rather be scared with you than comfortable without you. What about the practical stuff? Where would we even live? You're not going to want to stay in my small house, and I can't afford your lifestyle. We figure it out together. Maybe I downsize? Maybe we find something in between. Maybe we keep both places and split our time. I don't have all the answers, but I know we can find them if we try. Jericho was quiet for a long moment, then took her hand. I love you too. I've been fighting it, trying to protect myself, but Ainsley, I fell for you watching you help Zadie with her reading, seeing you adapt to a different life, grow from your experiences. You're not the same woman who showed up at my door 3 weeks ago. Neither is you're the same man who grudgingly rented me a room. We've both changed. The question is, are we brave enough to see where this goes? What about Zadie? I need to know you're serious about her too. She's a package deal. I know. And I want the whole package. Jericho, I don't just love you. I love being part of your family. I love helping with homework and hearing about her day and being someone she can count on. I want to be her stepmom, if you'll let me. If she'll let me. She already loves you. She's asked about you every day since you left. Then let's not waste any more time. Let's figure this out. Together. Jericho pulled her close, kissing her with all the pent-up longing and fear and hope they'd both been carrying. When they broke apart, both were crying and laughing. This is crazy, Jericho said. A billionaire CEO and a working-class single dad? People are going to have opinions. Let them. We'll prove them wrong. You know what Zadie's going to say? She's going to say she knew you'd come back. She told me you would. Smart kid. Takes after her dad. They sat on that bench overlooking the pond, planning a future that defied societal expectations and conventional wisdom. It wouldn't be easy. Bridging the gap between their worlds, facing down prejudice from both sides, blending their vastly different lifestyles. But they'd face it together. How's this story hitting you so far? Tell us in the comments. If you're loving it, type 1. If not, type 0. We want to know what you think. Ainsley stood in the kitchen of their new home, a comfortable 4-bedroom house in a good school district. Nicer than Jericho's old place, but not ostentatious. It was a compromise, like so much of their life together. Mom, can you help me? Zadie called from the living room. She'd started calling Ainsley Mom 6 months ago, and it still made Ainsley's heart swell every time. What do you need, sweetie? I can't remember this math formula. Ainsley smiled. A year ago, she wouldn't have known what formula Zadie meant. Now she was well-versed in 5th grade math curriculum. Jericho had quit his second job after Ainsley's company bonuses gave him financial breathing room. He was back in trade school, getting certified in facilities management with an eye toward running his own business. They'd compromised on finances. Ainsley still worked as CEO, but had implemented work-life balance changes that let her be present for family dinners and Zadie's school events. The relationship hadn't been without challenges. Ainsley's parents had initially been horrified by her choice to date a black single dad. Her mother Gemma had come around after meeting Zadie, but her father Sterling still refused to acknowledge the relationship. Some of Ainsley's friends had dropped away, unable to accept her new priorities and partner. Jericho had faced judgment too, from neighbors who thought he was using Ainsley for money, from family members who questioned whether he could maintain his identity in a relationship with such a significant wealth gap. His brother Beckett still made uncomfortable jokes about Jericho marrying up, but they'd also found support. Tegan was their biggest cheerleader. Portia had become like a grandmother to them all, and Ainsley's employees, especially those who'd benefited from her policy changes, had embraced Jericho and Zadie warmly. Dinner's almost ready, Jericho announced, emerging from the kitchen. His scrambled eggs had improved significantly over the year. And before you ask, they're not burnt this time. I wasn't going to ask. Ainsley lied with a smile. Yes, you were. Zadie giggled from the table where she was working on homework. You two are silly. We're in love. It makes people silly. After dinner, as they cleaned up together, Jericho pulled Ainsley close. Happy? Unbelievably. You? More than I ever thought possible. Thank you for losing that bet. Thank you for letting me stay. For giving me a chance, even though you had every reason not to. For changing my life. You changed mine too. Made me believe I deserved more than just survival. Made me believe in possibilities I'd given up on. They'd been engaged for 3 months, planning a wedding that would blend both their worlds, fancy and simple, traditional and unconventional, reflecting the unique partnership they'd built. Can I tell you something? Ainsley said softly. That first day when you opened the door and told me you were Tegan's cousin, my first thought was that you were attractive. My second thought was that I probably shouldn't notice how attractive you were. Why not? Because I knew I'd never fit into your world, that you'd never want someone like me. I was right about not fitting in, but wrong about the wanting part. I wanted you from day one, even when I was annoyed by your privilege and your expensive pajamas and your complete inability to cook a basic meal. I wanted you. I just fought it because it seemed impossible. Nothing's impossible. We proved that. From the living room, Zadie called out, "Are you two doing the mushy stuff again? Because I'm trying to do homework and it's distracting." They laughed, breaking apart. Their life together was imperfect, challenging, constantly requiring negotiation and compromise, but it was real, built on genuine love, mutual respect, and the willingness to bridge two very different worlds. All because Ainsley Beckford had lost a bet and ended up living with a single black dad who'd shown her what truly mattered in life. Not money or success or social status, but love, family, and the courage to be vulnerable with another person. Everything had changed, and Ainsley wouldn't have it any other way. "Come on," Jericho said, taking her hand. "Let's help Zadie with her homework. Together." "Together," Ainsley agreed, following him into the living room where their daughter waited. It was perfect, messy and complicated and sometimes frustrating, but absolutely perfect. Because love, real, transformative love, was worth every challenge, every compromise, every moment of uncertainty. And Ainsley Beckford, former CEO who thought she had everything figured out, had learned that the best things in life came from losing bets and taking chances on people society said you shouldn't love. She'd lost a bet and found everything she'd been missing. Found a family, found purpose, found love that transcended race and class and every obstacle society threw at them. And if she had to lose 100 more bets to experience this happiness, she'd do it in a heartbeat.